de franci francezi. Am început să lucrez în afaceri acum 20 de ani, ca angajat al unui startup la Cluj. 4 studenți francezi au împrumutat 10.000 de franci de la o mătușă ca să pornească o afacere în România. Astăzi, această afacere face 2 miliarde de euro pe an. Apoi, o multinațională lider mondial mi-a cerut să lansez în România un brand de 1 miliard de euro. 1 milion de oameni trebuiau să primească eșantioane și 1000 de oameni se ocupau de acest proiect. Viața cerea schimbare. Am studiat arte plastice pentru că așa mi-am dorit. Am studiat lingvistică pentru că și-a dorit mama mea, care era învățătoare. Am studiat un MBA pentru că, lucrând la nivel de decizie, era absolut necesar. Am studiat pe urmă alte lucruri, coaching, de exemplu, pentru că mi-a plăcut să fac asta. Am navigat uneori pentru că eu am decis că astea sunt obiectivele mele, alteori pentru că am reacționat la presiunile din mediu. Mi-ar fi plăcut să navighez mai bine. Mă gândeam de multe ori că mi-aș dori cineva să-mi ofere un kit. Ia-l și vei reuși așa cum vrei tu. O soluție. Acum un an am întâlnit pe cineva care s-a gândit să deseneze un kit. Să-l proiecteze, să-l pună în funcțiune. Și ăsta este motivul pentru care echipa noastră v-a invitat aici să vă spunem povestea mea, a noastră, a tuturor și cum ați intrat și voi în ea. O să-mi dați voi acum să trec la limba engleză pentru că suntem o comunitate internațională. So, finally getting back to English, we are an international community because we have a conference here with the news navigation team and we have some of our members of the news navigation family from South Africa. Please wave. And from Italy. And now I'm happy to introduce to you and leave you to his hands the designer of the kit that will help me navigate in the future, Aviad Goz. Please.
Hello, Romania.
Hello.
Can you hear this? No, it's too much now. Can you hear me without? Last row. Can you wave if you hear me? 1, 1, 1, 2. Great. So thank you for coming. I look at the list of organizations that are represented here, and it's very impressive. I just pick some names. Where are you from?
Me?
Okay. Uniqueness. Italian. Yes.
Kingfisher. Kingfisher.
Kingfisher. Wow. And I see on the list very significant names. Some of them we work with in other parts of the world. So I'm very happy to be here in Romania and share with you what we do. What we do is help people, teams and organizations navigate in times of change. But I thought maybe the best way is to tell you the story rather than the products or the benefits. So personally, I'm passionate about human potential and organizational potential for many reasons. I'm actually in this industry for 32 years. Maybe some of you were not born when I started, but this is a very long time. In these many years, I worked personally with about 2,000 organizations in about 50 countries. That's a lot. So from New York, Fortune 100, to very serious. Because when you do this kind of work, you actually go into people's mind and you understand how they think and how they feel, and that's a very rich experience. So on the way I built some companies of international training, but I think the interesting thing is that about 25 years ago I started to be very interested in how people, teams and organizations get stuck on the way to achieve their potential. I think if you look at literature and studies, usually we tend to study the few which are the best, correct? So you have books like Good to Great or Built to Last. Anyone read any of these books? Okay. And they always research those who made it, those top 5%, those top executives. But I was very interested in all those that didn't make it, which is more than 95%, and why they didn't make it to full potential. So actually, for years I was going around and discussing with executives, CEOs, HR people, OD people, trying to analyze what doesn't allow, what gets on the way to achieve a full scale potential at a high speed, okay? And the more I researched this, the more I realized that the main reasons are actually very few. I can actually group them into 4 groupings, okay? So one group was teams, individuals, and organizations that at some point were not sure where they go next. Okay, the market changed, the project changed, and they were not sure what's next for them. What's the future, what's the next step? And then they got stuck for a while trying to, work out. Anyone ever has been in a situation like this? Even personally, that you go, okay, finish this project, enough with this company, what's next? It's very natural. That's one reason. The second group of reasonings was people, organization teams that had clear direction, strategy, vision, but at some point lost the engine. They got tired, burned out, fatigued. I will not ask if it happened to you ever, but it's normal, and some people go through these stages. They probably know what they want, but at times the energy just is not there. Then I realized that the third grouping of reason was people, team, organizations that knew what they want, even had the energy, but were not very good in the planning and execution of it, okay, in the how to get there. So they moved, but the planning wasn't very good, the execution was a problem, very famous problem globally, to execute plans. And the fourth group of reasonings was everything was clear, and still people or teams or even a whole organization had all kinds of limiting beliefs, fears, hesitations, comfort zones. Okay. So I was doing this research really intensely for years, and I interviewed thousands of people that I actually worked with as clients. Then I was asking myself, how can I organize all this in a way that can be useful? And really for many, many years, I published 11 books. I'm in a way over-creative, with this buzz of creativity. And usually, and this is a strange personal note, I create inside water. In a bath, in a hot tub, in a jacuzzi, I even once wrote a book in the sea. Once I was in a sea resort, I was writing. So one day I took a bath, and I had this question, how do I organize these 4 main reasons why people get stuck and make it something we can work with? And so what emerged from this is a compass model, the energy, the drive, the motivation, the values to actually go to this north. Sometimes existing, sometimes not so much. The West represents the how to get to this north. So it's all about planning and execution. Sometimes working nicely, sometimes issues to work out. And the south, for me, is the most interesting. The south is all the why nots. You know the why nots? These voices that tell you, nah, you're too young, you're too old, you never did this before, no one did it, it's not safe, I'm not sure. Anyone ever heard these voices? I don't know anyone who never heard these voices. Like in all decision making, we believe that there is a dialogue between the East and the South. In a decision making point, the East tells you, you should do it. That's your passion, that's what you really want to do. And the South says, just a minute, wait. Who guarantees? You're not sure, careful, and eventually a decision is taken, either by this voice or by this voice. So this compass took 10 seconds to understand in the bath. Really, just after years of research. And it appeared as an organizing model. And after these 10 seconds, I spent 15 very intensive years of developing from this with clients. Solutions, applications, questionnaires, workbooks, video clips, movie, blah. With the whole international large team. But the basic language of everything that we do is this. I know it looks very simplified, but the moment you start to work with it, personally or organizationally, you begin to understand the power. The power is both diagnostic, but also intervention. Like if we find that an executive has issues in the South, we work with them on the South, how to overcome the limitations. If we discover an organization, the management is not clear about the North, we do intensive North work. So when I came here to our conference, Adrian told me, Adrian from the consultant, the guy that was here, he told me that Romanians like to play and to experience, correct? And they love, you know, I'm staying in this hotel for a few days now. I had every night a Romanian wedding on top of my head. How do you call the type of music? Zerba? Zerba. But till 5 in the morning. Very happy people. Anyway, like really intensive every night. Some nights it was 2 at the same time. Anyway, so I thought maybe to let you experience a bit this by diagnosing for yourself your organization. Okay? So I'm going to show you 3 questions in each direction, and you're going to, if you have something to write, you're supposed to have like pens or papers, diagnose it for yourself. Okay? You don't have to disclose it. I might ask later who scored, whatever, but it's a private affair. Okay? This is like an experiment to play with. Ready? Let's go. So, to explain that again, the North deals with strategy, direction, vision, it's all to do with the future. The East deals with meaning, values, drivers, whatever creates energy to move to them. The West deals with planning, execution, making it how to get it. And the South deals with how to go beyond limits, how to break through limits, historical limits, perception limits, okay? And grow into new spaces that you were not there before. And if you ask yourself why the colors have meaning. If you'll be interested, I'll share with you why the colors of the directions. So I'm going to give you 3 statements in each direction, and please rate your own organization, each one, between 1 to 5. 5 means absolutely total. 4 means, yeah, quiet. 3 means medium. 2 means not so much. And 1 means absolutely not. Clear? We need to write it? No, it's clear. Again, the North. The direction and strategy of the organization are clear to all its employees, between 1 to 5. Write yourself. It's a mini diagnosis. We usually do much deeper work. Okay? Question 2. There is an ongoing effective process of adapting the strategy of the organization to changes in its environment. So the leaders of the organizations read the map, and very frequently they adapt to changes. It's a strategy. It's not just once a year or once in 3 years. Ongoing. The third question is, there is an active and engaging process of cascading strategy and goals throughout the organization. Cascading is, like a waterfall, it goes into the organization. So there is an active and engaging process of taking high-level strategy and actually translating it down, engaging people with it. That's normal. So for each one, between 1 to 5. Good? The East. Remember East, energy, right? Employees are generally driven and motivated in our organization. Okay? The values of the organization are used as a real leadership platform, meaning they're not just written on the wall somewhere, because some committee created them, but they're actually used for hiring, appraisal, firing. They are really used as a platform for leadership, values. And there is a high level of engagement throughout the organization. I don't know who of you saw the results of a global engagement survey that was done last year. Apparently, not many people are highly engaged in their workplaces, globally. Actually, I think, if I remember correctly, only 19% of people say they are really engaged in the workplace. This is by Gallup. And 24% say they are actively disengaged. You know what it means? They come not to play, actively.
How you define engagement?
Engagement. Okay. It's people who care about what's going on. They feel belonging to what's going on. In a way, it's almost like their own business. Okay? Or like their father's business. Engaged, really. So that's the East. West. The organization is highly focused on executing its goals. Highly focused on execution of the goals. There is a high level of accountability and follow-up throughout the organization. If any word is not clear, let me know. Meetings are well planned, focused, and productive. Now, this is not the whole West, it's just like a sample, but little taste. Let's go south. It's the same on the The organization thrives in uncertainty and changing environment, meaning, and last one, the leadership of the organization functions well in challenging times and circumstances. Okay? Okay. Please make the sum up of each direction. The sum up of each direction separately. Let's go back. So we have very evolved questionnaires and 360 and whatever, but this is like a mini game. So let me just ask. In the North, remember your North? Who scored between 13 to 15 for their organization? One person, okay. Congratulations. Who scored 9 to 12? Who scored below 9, if you don't mind to tell us? I will not ask you where you're from.
What's your name?
What's your name? What's your number?
Your phone number.
Okay, so that's interesting. In the end of this, I'll tell you what I think is going on here by this little video. East. Who scored 13 to 15? One person, but another person. Who scored 9 to 12? Hello. Who doesn't mind to tell us if he scored less than 9? Who doesn't want to say? Okay. So in the East, the situation is a bit less. How about the West? Who scored 13 to 15? Now, 2 people. We're getting better. Who scored 9 to 12? Few. Who scored a bit less? No one. Last. I understand. And the South. Who scored the top notch, 13 to 15? One person. Another person. Who scored 9 to 12? Or this group here, somehow we set together. So the innovative, young spirit movers, and the rest probably scored less. I think even by this little game, you can understand that different situations are relevant to different organizations. Meaning, and they change. Maybe if we do this in a month's time, your response will be different. It's a very moving diagram of what has been worked out, clarified, moves, and what is not so clear, not obvious, not shared. So usually when we do any process, either with executives, individually, or with teams, or with organizations, we always diagnose first. And we diagnose quite deep because, before you prescribe, you really want to diagnose. But after we created this compass, the question was, so what do you do with it? No? It's a nice idea. Don't you think so? It's nice design. It covers many things. It covers strategy in the North, tactics in the West, engagement and culture in the East, blockages in the South. It's quite holistic, but what do you do with it? And so what happened in the last, so I created this in the bath 15 years ago. And then we started to think, okay, great. We don't want to have a solution that helps no one, so all our developments are done with clients. We have a lot of clients globally, both business people and the HR, L&D, OD, and together with them we evolve our problems. So over time we realize that what is really challenging a lot of organizations is the amount of change that is going on. Can I ask you, who of you in your organization faces change as a almost constant feature? Change in the marketplace, change in the economy, change in the work market, change in regulation, all kinds of changes. So we believe that change has become the new normal. Once upon a time, and I was there, older than all of you, change was once in a while, but now change is like constant. And both people and organizations are not really totally prepared for an ongoing change. Like, I can tell you, it's an interesting story. Last year we studied all our proposals that were declined. It's a good study to find out where you failed. And what's the reason that we failed? You know that in most cases the reason for not having closed something with the client is because the contact person changed over the 2 or 3 months we were discussing things with the organization. So you start with one, 2 months later it's a new HR, a year later it's a new CEO, then you set a program, but the strategy changed, and like, we live in a very constant, changing reality. So what we realize is the best thing we can do with executives, teams and organizations is help them in times of change to navigate themselves, their teams, their organizations. The people actually need. All the way from people who graduate university and don't know what to do with themselves. That's very common. You know that in France, 85% of first degree graduates have no idea what they're going to do. Because it's paid by the country, and so they go, and then, so that's on an individual level. We meet a lot of executives that have crossroads in their career and not sure what's next. But more than it, we find organizations that really need to work out again and again. Someone gave today an example in our conference of Kodak. You know Kodak? They're actually one of our clients. I don't know if it's a great pride at this stage, but they're one of our clients. You know that Kodak had actually the digital technology first? But they didn't believe in it. So in a way of navigation, they just didn't take the right turn. And from an empire and someone dominated the market, they will really shrink down. And I think today, if organizations and teams don't navigate in real time, you don't have a long time to correct things. I work with organizations that can disappear in a quarter if they don't do the right decisions. A lot of tiny startups that were invested in, and they have what we call burn rate. No burn rate? The rate they burn money.
Yes.
And they say to me, well, we have a quarter. We either make it in this quarter or not. We must get the most accurate decisions. And there's no time. So we realize that those solutions are very good to help navigating the change. Okay? And I will not keep it much longer because I understand this is more of a light event. So we have a philosophy about times of change. The philosophy says very simple. Constant change requires new organizational processes. It requires new leadership capabilities, for sure. New type of leaders, actually new type of organizations, very agile, flexible, moving. It needs times of change, not just adapt, actually thrive in uncertainty. So, along the years, with all of our clients, in many, many discussions, we actually developed few solutions that are still evolving. We actually have every year a new version of our solutions because things change, and so we need to change with it. So on one side, we have what we call organizational development solutions. We have organizational navigation, team navigation, and executive coaching. They're all very, very structured. Most of them are done in 2 days, very intense 2 days. But the idea is that we help either senior teams or other teams to create their own compass together. We facilitate, we guide, we lead, but it's their creativity. And because they create it, they own it. It's not a top-bottom, this is what we're going to do. We found that when people are involved in discussing, creating the compass in a structured way, they actually own it. And so the level of application later is really high. And we also follow up. We have quarterly follow-ups to make sure that whatever was decided actually happened. So we do this with teams, we do this with senior teams. Like my specialty in the last 5 years, I do organizational navigations with very fast-growing organizations. So I have organizations that I start with 30 people, and 3-4 years later, about 500. And I don't know if anyone was ever in an organization like this. No. There's a lot of pains of growth, like when you're a teenager, you remember? And you suddenly grow, and all your joints and all your muscles and bones need to, so managers need to come and go, you need to shift people, shift structures, it's quite complex. But it's a very interesting work, to really work with organizations that grow fast and help them navigate yearly and quarterly, it's amazing. So I get to know amazing organizations. Shall I tell you about one or two? So, to here I came from London, where I worked with a company second year, navigation. They are called Selina Hospitality. Anyone heard of Selina? Google it up, Selina with an S. This is an amazingly fast-growing hostels, hospitality chain, and they are aimed for digital nomads. Did you ever hear digital nomads? They estimated globally there are 300 to 400 million
young people that want to travel and work while traveling. So they designed a whole chain. So they have shared workspaces, they have what they call playground, a lot of activity, yoga, healthy food, parties, surfing, and they grow like crazy. Last year there were 40 people. This year there are 1,500 in a year. And that's chaos, that's crazy. And it's the leadership, you know, and unless it's cascaded very fast in the organization, it's an absolute chaos. Okay? So this kind of thing. But we also work with, you know, the big ones of the world, the big pharma, the big IT. There it's not so dramatic, but still a lot of navigation. And on the other side, so we started with this. We help organizations, teams, and executives navigate their journey. And then we say, okay, but why not give this compass to leaders so they can work with it themselves? Why should they need us to come each time? So we created with our customers what we call the leadership pathway. It's a training. But the main idea here is we believe that if people want to lead anyone, first they need to know how to lead themselves. Otherwise it's a joke. So self-navigation is we work with people where they create their own compass in the organization. It's mainly for top talents or for future leaders that the organization really want to retain. Then we developed manager as coach. So we gave this compass to first-line managers, second-line managers. And the idea is how to have impactful coaching conversations with my team, with individuals. Then we even developed a program which is called MAT, Manager as Team Navigator, which answers the need of a lot of our clients for leaders. How do I lead a whole team together, not just as individuals? Okay? By the way, it's not so simple to lead a whole team together, to align everyone to the same north, to have a joint east that all agree on, to overcome joint south and all kinds of beliefs and complaints and stories and excuses. Okay? And the last thing we developed, we actually mainly certify HR people as internal coaches. Internal coaches for managers in their organization. Who is HR here? Wow, hello. Who is OD? Organizational development. L&D? Learning and development. Who is not an HR? What are you? Sorry?
Communication.
Communication. Who else put the header?
Director of Software Engineering.
Okay, good. So we train a lot of HR people as coaches because organizations cannot afford external coaches. We give them a very systemized approach, north, east, west, south, personal, interpersonal, organizational, clear roadmap, very clear meetings, and that's what we do. So in this side, we develop a lot of leadership capabilities, very current. We train managers to stay attentive, open, flexible. And we also create a lot of new organizational processes for quick alignment, quick cascading, moving together and not shooting in all directions, and sometimes it doesn't really move. And finally, I'm happy to show you, and you can see the flag of Romania, which is our friends, the consultants. If you look at South Africa area, you can see they actually represent 5 countries. Do you mind to mention the countries? Because the names are a bit complex for me.
South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Swaziland, Zimbabwe.
Wow. Swaziland. Have you been there? I've been to South Africa. Really nice. No? Unique. But the others. Okay. So I'll be very happy to answer your questions. I don't show you all the clients, because we have many globally, from giants to micro organizations. share with me your questions.
Tell us about the colors.
Colors. Okay. Remember, this is 10 seconds in the bath. So I didn't have much time to think. So I chose red for the north because I think the north is very much to do with focus. It needs to be laser-like. Laser? Laser is based on ruby. If you know, it's a red stone.
Yes.
Lasers are red. So it's a color of focus and joint focus into the future. The east and the west, there is an old Latin saying, Latin, that says ex oriente lux, ex occidente lex, which means from the east comes the light, from the west comes the law and the order. It's interesting, the Romans, more than 2,000 years ago, realized about cultures, that cultures from the east are much more engaged in internal soul, spirit, religion, east comes the light. And West cultures, even today, are highly engaged in law and order. You know? In the US, UK, Germany, very much on that side. So because I knew this saying for a long time, I thought, how nice, the east will be yellow, from the east comes the light, the energy, the drive. It's all symbolic, of course. And blue is the color of order in many countries. Military, in police. And why the south is green? Because I truly believe that real growth happens only when you cross limits. As long as someone or an organization or team is in their comfort zone, like a seed or a chicken and egg, it's very safe, it's very pleasant, it's very nice, but there's no growth. So the south is green for growth, because in the south, what we do is we help people enter organizations, break through limits, go out of comfort zones, like a seed goes out, or a chick. You know chick? Calimero, honey. So that's the color. If you don't have questions, we have a lot of food, a lot of drinks. That's also a very good usage of your time. And we will invite you, of course. Yes, please.
How is your program different from other such leadership development programs? What is the USP?
Question clear? How our programs are different than other leadership programs? First, I must confess, I don't know all other leadership programs. I know some. I'm also certified on some. So to compare to everything in the market is a bit presumptuous. Yeah. I can't really do it. I think the uniqueness, some uniqueness that I know, all of our programs, you go on slide paper, they're all based on the same model. They all talk the same language, which is unique. Because you can do executive coaching here. Let's go one way. You can develop leaders in the organization, and it's all based on the same model and the same language, and they speak to each other. That's one uniqueness. And actually organizations that we work deeply into adopt the language, and they start to discuss what's your north, I see your issues in the south. It actually establishes a language. So that it's unique. I think there's a lot of very good things in the world. Seriously, I know some. For me, the cascading is important, meaning we first train people to lead themselves, then to lead individuals, people, and then to lead the whole team as a team. And it's totally different skills, very different capabilities. Okay? And I can always say it's very structured. But there's other things. But they work. Yes, please. It's a bit hot.
You said earlier, exactly on this slide, I'm more concerned on organizational development.
Okay.
That you, at organizational navigation, you said that you help teams to create their own compass. Can you give us an example?
Sure. Okay, so when we do organizational navigation, of course it's for the leadership team of an organization. Okay. So first we do a lot of preparation. We give them questionnaires, not like what you did, thorough ones, to understand their situation and all east, west, south. We also interview all of them personally to understand different viewpoints. And then when we come to do the program, which is 2 very intensive days, what we do with them, first we do what we call pre-navigation. So it's like when you operate your GPS. We first work with them on assessing where we are now. We have some very nice tools to assess where we are now. Because you know, if you don't know where you are, you get lost anyway. Also, a GPS starts, we do stakeholders map, all kinds of things to establish where we are. Then what we do with them, we look at trends in the environment. Trends. It's a bit like you navigating the sea. If you navigate in the sea or in the air, you really want to know the winds and the currents. Otherwise, you might want to go there and find yourself there. So we work out with them what is going to impact the organization in the next 1 to 2 years. And we take it into account. Then we work with them on the north. And the work on the north is to define the direction of the organization. It's very deep work. To define the next phase, like the next 1 or 2 years. Define the strategic drivers that will drive the next phase. And also we work out with them a best case scenario of 2 or 3 years down the line. How will success look? That's normal. So actually in each direction we have 3 steps, very structured. That we, let's say in the south, which is opposite to the north, we help them find out what limits their organization, mainly from within. Usually people say, we have competitors, not enough resources, so they always point fingers. Say, okay, that might be true, but what rules the day is your story to yourself about this fact. Because, you know, new competitor, you can tell yourself all kinds of stories about new competitor, no? Problem, challenge, opportunity to excel, opportunity to differentiate. So we work with them on the narratives, and we look for the most limited narratives that they all agree actually limit them, and we help them to choose to go through it, and then we give them some tools to follow up. So in each direction we do different work. Eventually it all ends up in the West. In the West we always help them to create a very high focus for the coming year. So we create critical goals, we create plans, weekly follow-up. So it always ends up with high practicality, really. They go out and they all agree what they do tomorrow. And then we do checkpoints every quarter. We have champions of different goals. And we actually meet the senior team every quarter to trace with the champions how they are progressing. And I can only say we have great results with many of them, a lot of them. I'll tell you why I think we have great results. I don't think it's us, seriously. I think in most organizations there is so much talent and so much potential, definitely in the senior level. What is very often missing is that all this talent will be aimed in one direction and not into opposing views, political arguments, and ego battles. So what we do, we find the unifying principles and create unification about what they can agree on. That's the main work that we do. Okay? When we have facilitators globally, that's what we develop them to do, to work with senior teams. You know, senior teams can be really tough, really political, really. I've met some teams that are crazy. And to help them come out with 70–80% alignment, it releases such a power. The power was there before. It just was little arrows pointing in different directions and not combined into one big arrow. And then we check on them, because otherwise it can disappear in 2 or 3 months. So we do post-questionnaire, we visit them every quarter to make sure. And that's why it works. It releases great talent into one direction. Good answer? It's a big detailed answer.
Thank you.
Please.
leadership development works without the organizational development part? Is it a standalone? Is it possible to do it alone, or is
good
it
question.
together?
You see, usually when we start to speak with any organization, we ask them what kind of change they are facing now, or need to face now, and who is impacted by this change. So sometimes it's the leadership team because two executives changed and there was a merger or whatever. Sometimes it's a sales team. Sometimes it's the HR team that needs to do mega change. So the question is, who is impacted and what do they need? So as an example, if they need to develop talents and retain talents, we go for self-navigation. It's nothing to do with this.
Okay.
If they have first-line managers that need to coach people, let's say sales manager, that constantly need to coach the team, we go for MAC. So actually they can be standalone. Most of the time they're standalone. The ones that are usually not standalone are these. Because usually when we do organizational navigation, it moves into team navigation, because we want to cascade. Then some executives need some help or some work, so this is why sometimes we work in the same organization 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, because things evolve and we have to actually evolve. And if we did team navigation last year, 2 years later, it's a different team, different focus, different constraints, and we need to navigate again. Does it answer you?
Yes, but it leads to my next question. If we can have leadership development as standalone in each of the steps, is it enough today training to create impactful change?
No way. I think to create lasting change never happens at once. So all our programs have follow-ups, implementation programs, online engagement, because it never happens.
Can you give an example for leading teams, for example? What is before the today workshop and what is after?
Are you still, it's okay for you? We keep you away from food and drinks. It's a dangerous thing. We'll take another few minutes. I think a lot of people, good leaders, know how to work with individuals. But if you put them in a team situation, you say to them, okay, please align your whole team to the new north the organization asks you to move into. Most don't know how to do it with teams. Seriously, I checked so many organizations. So they either come top bottom and say, this is the new direction, this is the new strategy, let's go. But when you have millennials, Y generation, knowledge age workers, this doesn't work so much. Okay? You need much more participative style. You need to leadership style. You need to really engage people. Think, everyone knows Generation Y, millennials, and if you think about it, these people like to be involved. They are not peons, you know. You can't move them like in the industrial age and tell them you can do it. You can, but they will leave if they can. So in this program, uniquely, we train leaders for much more participative leadership style, which for some of them, they don't know how to do. We train them how to engage people, how to create a buy-in, how to let people help and influence and own what's happening. Okay? And it's done with a compass. But the skills are to do with participative leadership and engagement and so teams.
Okay, so what happens after the workshops?
Okay. Really into it. Okay.
Very
Very good.
Curious.
So we meet them a few times for follow-up sessions. In the follow-up sessions, we do case studies. They report progression. They report what they did. We analyze situations. If they didn't do, we find out why they didn't do it. We have some platforms where they can, report what's going on, or discuss, or challenge. Again, because I'm doing this for 32 years, I don't believe in instant changes, and I never released any program without follow-up, implementation, checkpoints, in some platforms because it's just not true. It doesn't work.
Do you have a team in Romania? Or how do you do it?
Yes. Romania team, would you please stand up? Yeah.
Here we are.
Quite a large team.
We wanted to do that.
There are facilitators, coaches, trainers. Look, these programs you need training. Here you need facilitation and coaching. It's different. It's not the same process. It's not the same skills. But we have here a very accomplished group that has many skills. Thank you. Please sit down. Don't need to keep standing. Okay. Last question.
Can you give us more details about the internal coaching certification, I mean duration, which are the steps and the steps?
I will show this. So here is something interesting. You know, coaching in different cultures means different things, and in different markets it means totally different. You know that in some markets, coaching is something that a person should hide if they get coaching. And so the coach comes in through a back door with a hood and all that. In other cultures, you get coaching as a badge of honor because the organization believes in you, like in sports. They give you a coach to make you excellent. But one thing that is globally true, even if you believe in coaching and work with coaching, usually the level that gets it is the senior executives. And then what do you do with, let's say your organization is medium, you have 400 people. So let's say you have 100 managers. Maybe you can afford the organization to coach 2, 3, 10. What do you do with the other 90? Usually we call it almost the gray area. Most organizations just, maybe they do sometimes some training programs, the individual coaching, navigation. And this gray matter actually is what is holding the organization live and active, and is usually not touched and not attended. And so very often they become really gray. Worn out, they do the daily work. So what we discovered is that the HR profession, and you know that in different countries, HR people mean different things. You know that? There is actually a curve of evolution of HR. It starts from administration only, to compensation and benefits, to discussing with unions. But globally, there's a very growing trend of HR VP. You know VP? HR business partner, HR as a coach, HR as a strategic partner, sitting with the leadership group. So HRs can grow. One of the ways for HRs to grow is become coaches for men, internal, not for the senior managers, but for these many, many people. Now, we know that many coaching types depend very much on the coach. It's what we call a guru approach. We don't like it because you cannot replicate it, you cannot systemize it. So we created a very, very structured process which is easy to use. We do questionnaire, we do roadmap, we set goals, we engage the direct manager always. So it's not only coaching someone to be a pianist. Okay? It's done in the organizational context. So the way we do it, it's 4 to 5 days. Not always done as one bit, sometimes there's some difference. Then we actually do what we call internship. We supervise the first 2 coaching. Most of our coaching sessions are highly effective, 10 to 12 sessions. They're very structured, you know what you do. You can even tell the manager, I'm doing with him now the personal list. And it's still okay, we didn't disclose anything. Or we are working on Team North. He has an issue in Team North, we are working that out. So 4 to 5 days, 2 supervised processes, questions before and after, and then during the year we have some webinars, 3, 4 webinars to do quality assurance and make sure. But usually when you do with someone the first 2 full coaching assignments, by remote, by reporting, by discussing, as a coach, we have some, how should I call it? We need to choose the right people. There's some selection process, natural, so really people who have the tendency, the capability to do it. If there are some coaches from before, even better. Okay, if they learn some skills, or some, this is a system. We teach skills, but it's a very systemized. It's okay? Okay, I thank you for your patience. Adrian warned me not to speak more than 30 minutes. But I didn't cross it too much. We would love to host you now, so I think it's back there. Anna says there's a lot of food. Anna, please tell them. I will say to you thank you and goodbye. I will stay here with you. If you have any other questions, we can discuss with you. We love what we do.
Înainte de a ne continua degustarea cu vin și finger-uri și alte specialități pe care deja le-ați văzut, aș vrea doar să vă atrag încă o dată atenția asupra celor care au făcut posibil acest eveniment și datorită cărora suntem astăzi aici. Și aș începe cu echipa n.e.w.s România și anume Nicolae-Gabriel. Andreea Gheorghiță, Diana Stoicescu, Laura Balaci, Andreea Zanfir, Gabi Habat, de la Cluj, Radu Mândru, toată lumea e? Sorin Feroiu, colegul nostru care a plecat. În ultimul rând, Adrian Barbu și Andra Șuta. Mulțumim încă o dată. Vreau să subliniez acest lucru ca să știți că suntem aici, echipa n.e.w.s România, alături de voi și alte întrebări în seara aceasta și numai. O seară plăcută!